Well, here we are with our favorite felon of the West, OGT, out the brew crew from in Riverside, California. And today we got talk about all kinds of little things. We're going to talk about books, music, prison, and maybe some funky ways to make oatmeal. Remember
Oh,
that?
man, yeah, with peanut butter on top and melt the peanut butter in it. Oh
Yeah, and
yeah,
then take go out
that's
there
the
and you get done
shit,
working
man.
out the prison oatmeal with the fish in it,
Yeah.
and oh my
Well, no,
God.
I couldn't do that. See, now I would eat a mackerel or a fish after the workout, but them guys that could put the tuna in the oatmeal, I wasn't feeling that.
Oh, I did that. I did the tuna, and now and then you'd find a mustard pack to put with it, and some pepper, put it in the oatmeal, and that was some of that
Oh
oatmeal
my
was
God,
oatmeal was
that's
sawdust.
nasty.
Yeah, it
That's
was. In
nasty.
fact, I actually have some now with salmon in it every now and then. I guess I'm institutionalized
I
a
can't.
little
No,
bit.
yeah, but you make fresh oatmeal now,
Yeah,
and
it's real
not the
oatmeal.
instant. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I haven't
it's
had a
not
mackerel or a tuna in a while. Now that you mention it.
really. I've had a mackerel for a while. I like people don't realize that's kind of a staple in prison: mackerels and tunas in little
Yes,
foil bags,
and
and that's
it's
it.
currency.
There's
Currency.
currency.
It's currency. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that another time. But if anybody's watching, when you pay in prison, when you buy anything, you had books of stamps, and they came with little rubber bands around them. And unless you got a book of stamps with X amount, and then if they were still on the flat, remember they
Oh
were
yeah.
the way you buy the forever stamps, they were worth more money. And then there was tunas and mackerels. And other than sending money to someone's books, which was more of a pain in the ass, you could pretty much buy anything with tunas, mackerels, and stamps.
Well, I'd go to my get a haircut and give the guy tuna.
Yeah,
That
exactly,
that was just
exactly.
how it was. And
I only
our
had to
little
give a
law firm we
mackerel
ran,
because
we
I got
charged
less.
tunas.
Oh,
What's that?
sorry. No, I didn't
I
mean to
said our
cut you
little law
off.
firm we ran. We had there. We were no doubt we were jailhouse lawyers. We got paid in tunas. All
Yeah.
the time.
Well, you guys did. For you guys that don't know, Jack was a jailhouse lawyer. He got off so many people. The feds did a thing a while back because they had screwed everyone on getting 2 points off, especially for crack cases. The black guys got beat on this. It was horrible, most of them. And but if you had crack cocaine or stuff, there was no way you could get points off. Well, they changed that law, and you could apply for 2 points. And 2 points, like if I would have got 2 points off, that would have been probably 2.5, 3 years for me. But I was a career offender, and I wasn't eligible. And but Jack got off, man, a lot of people, and it was kind of funny because there was jailhouse lawyers. That remember that prosecutor? He was a federal, U.S. He was a
Yeah.
federal
Yeah.
prosecutor, and he had his law firm in there, and he wasn't getting anybody any love. And he was charging big money, not big money, big jailhouse money,
Yeah.
but
Big
he would have,
jailhouse man.
yeah, big jailhouse money, like a few $100s sent into his books from the street. And old Jack would do it for some tuners or some mackerels or some Diet Pepsis. And man, how many you? I mean, I know of seven
Wow.
or eight guys you got off years off their sentence.
Yeah, we did. I can't remember how many we did. We actually won like 17 cases altogether. It was
Yeah,
pretty bizarre. But we had some other things. We did some custody things for guys and stuff. But yeah, that was all. The 2 points, and people who don't understand that's a big thing on a guy's sentence is for how long you'll be staying in prison. And some of these guys, and guilty, yeah, they were guilty, and everybody go, oh, you're getting guilty people out. No, they just get the sentence adjusted what was reasonable. Doing some of these guys were doing ungodly amounts of time for that, and so we kind of got our little law firm set up, and we did pretty damn well. I said our retainer was four tunas, you know, which was about what, $10, on the street.
dollar eight. I think they were $1.85 at the time. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
We
that's
won
funny.
we won a case where two law firms out in the world for a guy didn't get and for him, and the third one turned him down, said you don't have a case, and we took it and we won it right from me and Winston, my little
Winston.
assistant. Yeah,
Yeah.
did all the typing and all that stuff there, and we won it.
How much
And
time you get off?
I got 14 months. We only had 18 months to go.
He was happy.
So
He was happy to say.
happy. Oh man, he came back and threw a couple mackerels at us even as a tip. But I kind of go back for a minute. People, I got some questions here for some people, our viewers, I guess you call them. And specifically for you, I got a guy who wants to ask is, you went back 3 times, right? Plus a
Three
parole
times
violation.
plus. Yeah, I had three bids:
Yeah,
88, 96, and 2002.
and they're all drug offenses.
Yes, two marijuanas and manufacturing methamphetamine.
This guy wants to know. He says, he said, after you get banged the first time, what the hell? Wasn't that enough, or why would you keep going back?
Well, it really wasn't punishment for me. When I went in the first time, let's see, I was like 240 pounds. I had overdosed seriously 10 times on coke, been to hospitals, had paramedics and everything. I was selling kilos and selling weed, and I was like out of my mind. Well, I went to jail when I was 30, and which most of my friends and my partners didn't think I would live that long. So it saved my life. Well, I got in there, man, I lost 60 pounds. I went on a strict diet and started working out, and so I put I don't know. I put a lifetime on. I didn't subtract years from my life. I put years on my life, and as I had told you before, it worked out okay for me. I learned to play tennis really good. I became an avid weightlifter, and when I got out, and the whole time the whole time I was in there, I was plotting to do drug deals again when I got out. That's the difference. If depends who you're running with and what you're doing while you're in prison has a lot to do with what's going to happen to you once you're released. Well, my whole time in, you know how you walk around the track, and
Yeah.
a lot of guys walk around in groups, and I ended up walking by myself the last time, but the other times I would walk with people, and we were plotting drug deals. Hey, I can get the weed. You meet. It's like if you didn't have good connections when you went to jail, when you went to federal prison, you sure had them when you left.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It's a
So, but that was under was part of that because that was the old federal system too. Was it prisons were better? I guess to say better, I don't know. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
yeah, of course they were. Back in when I went in '88, I was the first one of the new guidelines, where parole was abolished. So it was all about you were getting this much time, it depended on how much weight you had, and it was cut and dry. But when I went in, the prisons were nice. I mean, I've told you before, but you got the same. The prisons gave the same amount to feed the inmates that the military did. So we were eating lovely, we're eating good. You're eating good food and getting seconds, and there was money for recreation. Uh, you remember how tight it got for
Yeah.
budgets later,
Yeah.
but back then, I mean, there was, I mean, they were giving out prizes and stuff every holiday, the tournaments and stuff, and it was easy. And I had told you, I don't know if you want me to touch on it again, but I did 16 months in a co-ed prison.
Hmm.
Uh, and they don't have them any longer. This was I forget who got rid of them, but at the time when I was doing them, they had one in Dublin, Pleasant. We call it Pleasanton because it's Pleasanton, California. It's actually Dublin, but I don't know why everybody called it Pleasanton. And they had one in Fort Worth, Texas, and they had one in Lexington, Kentucky. And then were the co-ed prisons in the federal system. And so, I was getting, you could get a clothing package from your house. So I'm wearing nice stuff, man. I'm wearing nice gear, and I had a girlfriend, and she was Miss El Paso. She was hot, she was cool, and and she had millions. Her husband was a giant drug dealer, and she was in there for assassination on a federal judge. She was doing 30 years, and Liz was just like the coolest, man. And so my whole bid basically was, where's the punishment? Um,
Yeah.
it actually, like I said, I would have died, if it wasn't for prison. And
Well,
so
back then was drug booze and stuff. Was it readily available in those places if you wanted
oh
it? I
God, yeah,
mean,
yeah. Oh, like Liz had. It was funny because Liz, she was half Mexican, half white, and she had dark hair, but she was a blonde. And Liz had been in 9 years when I met her, and she still had blonde hair,
yeah,
and so she was getting dye
yeah,
sent in, and she had two cops that she would pay off, And like I said, every Saturday, Liz would make me a big thing of Bloody Marys, make me a thing of food, and she used to buy up a lot of. If people had weed on the yard, she would buy it because she liked dealing with me better when I was high on weed, because sometimes I could be a handful, and so there was that, and then we were eating so much acid, it was crazy. I had my buddy, this black dude from Oakland. He was a big coke dealer, and Carl was cool as hell, man. He had like a big old thick gold chain in there. I called it his Mr. T starter kit, of course. Back then, that was more contemporary, but yeah, there was so much drugs. I tried not to, except for the acid and the pot. I didn't mess with the drugs a lot, and it was easy time back then, and it's not like that any longer, but
No, but so so then that kind of goes back to the second question. I'm going to throw the second question I've got. What was the one thing that made you change? What was at the point? Your age? What the hell was it to hit you?
well, like you had touched on that my first bid, it saved my life. So I'm thinking, wow, this is cool. Well, I got out, and I left. I split. I had 3 years supervised release probation. I had 3 or 5 years that time, maybe five. It might have been five. I forget now. It's been so long. And I took off the first day and went fugitive and went and got a couple 100 pounds. Went to Colorado. But I didn't learn my lesson that time. The second time and so I was a fugitive when they finally caught up with me. I was in Rhode Island, and I caught a pot case, and they gave me 25 years, 9 to serve, 16 suspended. I was doing my time in there, and and while I was in there, it was like I knew I was going to go back out and do drugs. And sell pot and do the same thing. I planned on it, and so that time I didn't learn my lesson. Well, I was out for, God, I don't know, 3 years, and then I got a parole violation, and while I did it, I promised somebody I'd teach them how to make meth and precursor chemicals, and then I when that time I got busted that time when I was out, and I hadn't even made it home, and so I had been gone, and before I even made it home to my family and my girlfriend, I caught that case, and I remember distinctly when I was in the federal detention center in Rhode Island. Um, I was sitting there, and I had to call my sister and tell her, and I love my sister. Oh man, I go, I was 48, and at that time, I just before I even, I mean, the first day I got arrested. In fact, when they arrested me, there was DEA, FBI, because they had never had a meth case in Rhode Island, first one. And I was on the front page of the Providence Journal and everything. It was on the news. It was how they do. And I was
Oh
Billy the
yeah,
Kid to them. I was Billy the Kid to them, and I was just a nobody. And anyways, and when they caught me, I knew I shouldn't have been doing it, and I felt bad about it. I go, man, why are you doing this? And it was because I promised someone I would do this for him while I did time with the guy, and I didn't want to not keep my word. And but as soon as they caught me, I told on myself. I said, yeah. I said, here, I got this. I got some phosphorus. I got some iodine. I had it all. I had it up in the attic of a halfway house I was living at. And I said, yeah, here, you can have it all. I said, I shouldn't have been doing this. And I took the beef. I rode the beef, and all on my own. And I told him that my co-defendant, I said, nah, he was just renting me his barn to make this shit. And he was actually my co-defendant. And so I got a lot more time, and but I just accepted my responsibility the first time in my life, and it was the very first time that I decided I'm done. This is it. This is it. I thought I was gonna do 20 years, and it turns out I only got 12 and a half only. um, and which you do 11 on, but that was an only thing. They gave me the
yeah.
bottom of my guidelines, and it was just a thing where I decided right then I was going to change my life and maybe try to just whatever achieve some of my potential.
So why would you? I look at this and I'm asking myself this too at the same time. Is and I've had people ask me this, say, well, if you're going to get out and you're going to change your life and stuff, why don't you just take the easy road? Why don't you get out, get a job? Well, we both have jobs, but they're supplemental to what we're doing. But why don't you get a job, get a little house, get a dog, car, join a church, go bowling on Thursday nights. I'm describing life in Iowa
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now, and,
yeah, yeah.
and just do that instead of trying to take on this challenge of starting a beer, and we'll get into more about the books and the music later, but what the hell, why would you even want to do something like this when it'd be much easier to go the other way?
Well, I'm looking at the dichotomy of mine and yours life, Jack, and for you, there was no other way for you. You were going to do. You've always, went and done things and achieved. You were a captain on the police, or you've achieved things. And for me, I never followed through on anything. Anytime I would start a business, I would get tired of the struggle or a job. And instead, and I've had good jobs and started and had good ideas for businesses that I started, and I never followed through. I always had my whole family tell me, well, God, you're the smartest one in the family. You could be so successful if you ever channeled your energies in the correct direction. And I never did it. I never followed through on anything except, when I would put together nice pot deals and, get them from Mexico or even from Arizona and California, get it shipped back east, in pickups and truck cars and shit. And I put together nice deals and I ran it tight, but I never followed through. And I quit high school at a young age. Uh, uh, I was a straight A student, and then all of a sudden I started getting high. Quit high school, didn't even finish the 10th grade, and got involved in drugs, and my life started going off the rails. And anybody who's ever been involved in drugs knows it can. There's a lot of bright, creative, good people that drugs have just ruined their life. And everybody who's watching this has a family member somewhere in their family that's been affected like this. And so it was a thing for me is, I got to make something. I got to live up to some of that potential. God, I was kind of blessed with, decent mind, uh, ambition, hardworking. I have good work skills, and I was blessed with that, and I never did anything with it. And so when I met you in prison, it was like, when we started this, it was a thing where there was tough times because you were still in and I was out. And
Uh-huh.
and I would be going through tough times, and I go, well, I can't let Jack down. This is my partner. We planned this. And actually, if it wasn't for you, I don't know. Sometimes I might have just said screw it, and because I was making good money, and I knew a lot of people in the business. I would have bought a truck and hauled cars, probably made a couple $100,000 a year, and saved some money, got married, got the dog, got the house, exactly what you're talking
Went
about.
bowling.
You went bowling. Well, I can't bowl for shit. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would have went drinking. But it's just something that, I needed to follow through. And in actuality, not letting you down helped me follow through when I could have cut bait and said, fuck, man, this is hard.
Well, for me, I just never been able to settle for anything, and the one time in my life I decided to take the easy road, it put me in prison, and my mindset is not like that. And when I did, I stole money, and uh, and that was totally out of character for me because I always found a way to make it. Always, I'm gonna make this, find this, whether I was trading, whether it was in law enforcement, wherever it was. And then the one time I think, well, you know what? I know this can work this way. I ain't going to worry about it. I started believing I was so much smarter, and guess what? I wasn't. And then the guilt gets to you, and I just bellied up on everything. But I know that this is something that's reachable, despite the fact I've never had more barriers in my life to anything I've ever dealt with. It's insane sometimes to start a business and write a book and do some music and try to just be able to converse back and forth. Man, you talk about and the barriers, The barriers are ridiculous. The barriers are, I've told the story about, probation guys saying, you can't talk to felons. I said, well, at the pizza place, I work with felons. Well, you can work with them, but don't talk to them. What the hell is that about? And it goes on from there. It's like when I wrote that first book in prison about Doug, and I wrote and I got it out. We're going to publish it. And I told the probation guy, yes, he said, what are you doing? And I told him I'm working. I thought I'd publish a book. He goes, well, you can't write a book. I said, well, yeah. Now here's how stupid this is. In prison, they actually, one of the few things the BOP does that's a good idea is they actually advocate write if you want to and send manuscripts out if you want to. And they really don't bother you about that. They want you to keep, it's a babysitter.
But you can't run a business from there.
No,
Even if you had a business when you came in, you're not allowed to run it from prison. Just
yeah, no, your business
just so I
can
can
go.
clarify it with people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you can write the book, but there are guys that had businesses and they came in there and they practically got to hand them off or go belly up, which we can get into a little bit. That's totally nonsensical. I mean, you're affecting a bunch of people instead of the guy who committed the crime. But anyway, in this deal here, they told me I could write, and I wrote it. And the correctional officers who were there, our education guy and rec guy, who were good COs, they knew about it, and they read this is really good stuff, and I had even in Kentucky, and I was there, they did. But so I tell this guy, he goes, you can't write a book. I said, well, yeah, I can. He goes, what's it about? I told him it's about the polygraph. Oh, no, you can't do that. I don't know what's going to happen. I said, nothing's going to happen. I said, don't go. Nothing's
We wish something would happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And from his perspective, I don't know what he was talking about. I told him, are you aware that the BOP actually has this as in their policy? You can do this? Oh, I've never heard of such a thing. Apparently
never
not.
read the policy, obviously.
Yeah. So anyway, that was all about so the roadblocks after that get even dumber. But anyway, so I was saying this is taking on a challenge that really, looking back at my life, should be one of the smaller challenges I've ever dealt with. And it's the biggest one I've ever dealt with.
Well, we probably could have made it easier on ourselves, just so I can give some clarity to people. This started the first thing we got out was Jack's book, and I could afford to give a few $1,000 to get an editor and go forward with it. And then these people, that the wife that was editing this, they were actually in the television business. Well, the book Jack wrote was about the polygraph. And so I'm thinking of ways to market the book. And so I start thinking, well, man, maybe we could do a TV series on the poly. And when we found out, once Jack wrote the book, I found out all these things I didn't know about the polygraph. Horrific stories of miscarriages of justice because of the polygraph. I mean, the guy he wrote the book about, Doug, he was on 60 Minutes. And they proved it was all a scam, the polygraph. And with what was her name? Diane Sawyer. Diane Sawyer. And so, anyways, I started thinking about, well, how can I help get some things for this book? And I was telling Doug, who the book's about, Jack. That's Doug, our partner. He's dead now. And I said, Doug, I go, we should talk to Pam and Terry about doing a TV show called. And we could call it the Polygraph Files. And it's all about cases where the polygraph got it wrong, sometimes wrong for the defense and sometimes wrong for the prosecution, like the Green Mountain Killer. They had him in a false polygraph. Let this guy, what was it, kill 9 more girls?
Yeah.
Yeah. And these people go, oh, this is a great idea. Jack wrote some episodes, and he was in Kentucky by then. And so we weren't allowed to talk. So when we were trying to get this TV show and the book off the ground, when you were calling me from Kentucky.
Oh, I want to show everybody the book. This is the book, if you can see it or not, that we're talking about. And and we're going to tell you, it's for sale on Amazon. You look at it's on my website too, which is posted down at the bottom if you're interested. Or if you got
and it is a good book. It's a funny book. It's a good book. Yeah.
It is. It is. And we've had. Actually, it's done okay. I've got people around here who read it. A lot of people enjoyed it, but there are people who were talking about doing a TV show. We're not hanging on to some kind of bizarre idea of that right now. Maybe someday it'll happen. Maybe it won't. But
it did happen. Somebody else did it. They took our idea, but
they took our idea. Yeah. There's another good example. took our idea and then told me, well, you can't copyright this material because you're in prison. But so yeah, sure you can. You can copyright from if you a dead guy can copyright if he wants to. I mean, but when you're incarcerated or you're under the the umbrella of the BOP, Bureau of Prisons, you pretty much got to listen to anything. You know it's bullshit and believe it. That's pretty much how it is. But so going back to that, so we get the book out and stuff. And we get out and so starting this business now with the beer thing, and then as we talked about before, we've had COVID. Doug, the guy the book was about, he dies during COVID, and everything just goes haywire. We have the political scene changes and pretty soon everybody's so involved in that they kind of forget there's another world out there sometimes, you know.
Well, the thing that that really sticks out in my mind is that our whole plan always was we want to have books, we want to have music, and we're hoping to get some notoriety in them two genres to promote the beer. So, and we had the nonprofit. We did start a nonprofit to help people come out of prison. It was a second chance initiative, and so we started all four of these things at once. And everybody was telling us, "Hey, why don't you guys do one of these things at a time?" Well, me and you were kind of hard headed, and
Really?
yeah. But anyways, so we made it harder on ourselves. We did an album in Nashville, and we had a girl Tina do a video and one of Jack's songs. And Tina had been in prison 26 years. Tina's cool, man. She's from Arizona. She's a gay woman, and and she we wanted to keep our mission statement of helping people come out of prison, and so we basically tried to, excuse me, start four things that each one in itself was a serious business
Uh,
and a lot of work. And and we tried to start all four at once. And so we actually put some roadblocks up to our own life. But you know what? We never gave up on that. And
no.
you guys, anybody watching this, you're gonna start hearing some of Jack's songs on here. You see the book behind him? That's code name Eclectics. He just showed you another book, and he's got a couple more. We have, and so you're going to get more of these songs. And this is a great studio. This is Baird Studios in Nashville, big studio, and these are quality stuff. And and you see the beer sign behind me. We're figuring it out. And even though there's been some roadblocks and everything, we're going to see this through. We probably could have made it easier on ourselves, but we didn't. But that's our nature.
I think part of that for me is that sometimes I look out there and I don't want to be, you know, uh, dismal about it, but sometimes I look out there and you see your own mortality down the road when you see these people dropping off here and there in their 60s and 70s, and we're both healthy guys, but that don't mean a damn thing sometimes. And I'm one of these guys. I want to accomplish something. As soon as I do, then I want to go to the next thing, and then I want to go to the next thing. Okay, so what I want everybody to understand, so we can kind of put this in context here, what we're doing, and we're talking about this. This is our program here. We've got four books. We've got an album. We got a video with Tina singing a song of mine, and we're going to release that here on the YouTube channel next week, so people can see it. And we've got the beer. Now it's four different areas. All we're asking you to do is pay attention to us for a little bit and see how it goes. That's really what we're looking for right now. And there's a lot of things there. Most people would take all these on at once, but we're old, been incarcerated, probably a little squirrely. So that's why we're going to do it like that. I can't think of a better way to explain that. Um,
Um, it, I got to touch on something you mentioned right a second ago, and that's our age. And I'm 67, you're 66, and we got to make this happen now. It's our health is good. It's not That's not a guarantee. We both are workout guys. We both like to run. We're doing everything we can. That's a given. But we came out knowing there's a lot of people, a lot of you younger guys getting out. They can get jobs, they can save, they can get a 401k at their job and stuff, and build something up and have a little bit of life once they retire. For us, I got out at 58, and That's not really that wasn't really ever an option. You know, where you could have a comfortable life if you try to get a job and start over at our age. That being that. Well, you know what? That's not why we did it because that's just not us. Um,
No.
uh, we're trying to prove a point here, and I'm sure our egos have gotten in the way a few times, where we bit off more than we probably could chew, but we're chewing it slowly, and it's it'll make it sweeter. All the hardships and stuff that we're suffering now, and boy, let me tell you, I'm suffering hardships, and but I'm happy and I'm content, and I'm proud of what we're doing, and I know we're going to get to help some people down the road, and maybe be an inspiration for some people getting out, and uh, I wouldn't have done it any other way, no matter what.
Yeah, one of my things is, and this sounds cornier than hell probably, but I'm a big believer in legacy. A huge believer. I was fortunate with a couple of granddads that, and a dad that left legacies for me that there were three completely different legacies. And, and I'll tell you, they left, people always ask me, where do you come up with these one-liners? If you knew that where I came from, these guys had the greatest, sharpest one-liners in the world. And in fact, I had one granddad, his entire conversation would be one line right between your eyes, jab you if you didn't get, I mean, and it was hilarious, because most people didn't get it, but that's in our legacy. This is a legacy thing here, and we got different people, and I have family that looking at it. I've got grandkids that look at it, and just people in general. People are going to look at this, and that might be sound egotistical as hell, but hell, I'll be dead. You can't stroke a dead man's ego anymore, but maybe somebody will get something for it.
Exactly, and that's like I said, when I go sell beer when I'm out, and I tell them a little bit about Prison Break, and I tell them, I said, look, our whole thing is, anybody can do good, and in our case, I always tell them it's never too late to change your life to be successful. I'm an old goat, and with like I said, I told you, a ninth grade education, career offender, 20 years in prison, and so it can be done. That's what I want for the legacy. I'm open to inspire some people coming out that maybe think they can't do it, um, to do it. And however it is, if it is just a good job and taking care of your family and being a good dad, good mom, whatever it is, and I'm hoping to do that.
Yep. That pretty much spells it all out. Well, GT, we're going to close it down for this week. Unless you got any closing comments you want to
No,
make to anybody.
that'll that'll do it.
I want to tell everybody out there, I appreciate you watching this, and reach
Oh
down,
yeah.
hit that
Okay.
subscribe button. I mean, we ain't asking that whole lot. Just subscribe, follow us along,
uh,
see what we're doing, and I think you're going to find it pretty interesting to go along. We got some things coming up next week. We're going to release a video with Tina Stein doing one of our songs, professionally recorded. It's a really good video. I'll talk to you about that more before we do it. Other than that, I see ya. Take care out there at the Brew Crew. Be good.
hey, talk to you, Jack.
Next week, folks.